She thought rest would help. She thought if she just sat down more, her legs would recover. They didn't. And nobody told her why. I want to ask you something. When your legs feel heavy, when they ache, or tire too quickly, what do you do? Most people do what makes complete sense. They sit down, they rest, they wait for it to pass. And here is the part nobody warns you about. For legs after 60, rest can be the very thing that makes it worse. Not dramatically worse, not immediately worse, quietly worse, slowly worse, in a way that takes months to notice, by which time the gap between where you were and where you are has become much harder to close. Stay with me, because in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what happened to one woman who did everything she thought was right, and how understanding one thing began to give her legs back. The thumbnail you clicked on told you the truth. She rested too much, and it made it worse. Here is the story behind that. Susan is 72 years old. She lives in Ohio. For most of her adult life, Susan was the active one. Morning walks before work, gardening on weekends, always on her feet, always moving. People who knew her described Susan as someone who never really sat still. Her neighbor Patricia used to joke, "Susan, do you even own a couch?" 3 years ago, that started to change. Her legs began to feel tired earlier in the day, a familiar heaviness that arrived by afternoon and stayed through the evening. Not pain, just weight. The kind of weight that makes the couch feel less like a choice and more like a necessity. Her doctor said, "Susan, you've been on your feet your whole life. Your body is asking for a break. Rest more." And Susan, who had always trusted her doctor, rested more. She stopped the morning walks. Just temporarily, she told herself. She started spending more time on the couch with her legs elevated. She cut back on the gardening until I feel stronger. She started parking closer to store entrances, started taking the elevator when there was one, started saying no to evening walks with Patricia. Maybe next week. The first few weeks felt right. Less activity meant less fatigue at the end of the day. She felt like she was finally listening to her body. But then, something strange happened. The rest wasn't making her stronger. It was making her weaker. By month 2, getting up from the couch took noticeably more effort than before. By month 3, the morning stiffness that used to disappear after a few steps was lasting until mid-morning. By month 4, her legs felt heavier than they had when this whole thing started. Something was wrong, and Susan couldn't understand what. She was doing everything right. She was resting. She was being careful, wasn't she? She noticed her neighbor noticing. Patricia, looking out from across the street. The garden sitting untouched. Susan at the window instead of in it. And for the first time, she allowed herself to ask the question she'd been avoiding. What if rest isn't the answer? Here is what nobody had explained to Susan. And this is the part most people never hear, even from their doctors. Your legs are not passive. They are not designed to wait. They are designed to move. And when they stop moving, something specific begins to happen that cannot be fixed by rest. Stop for a second, because this changes everything. Inside your calves, right now, as you watch this, there is a pump. Not your heart. A second pump, made entirely of muscle. Every time your calf muscles contract, every time you take a step, rise on your toes, or simply shift your weight, those muscles squeeze the deep veins of your lower legs and push blood back up toward your heart. This is called the calf muscle pump. And after 60, it is one of the most important circulatory mechanisms in your entire body. Because your heart pumps blood down to your legs easily, gravity helps. But getting that blood back up, against gravity, through vessels that are already stiffening, requires the calf muscle pump to do its job. When Susan stopped moving, that pump went quiet. And here is what happens when the calf pump goes quiet. Blood begins to pool in the lower legs. Not dramatically. Not in a way you'd notice immediately. Just a slow accumulation. Fluid builds in the tissue. The familiar heaviness arrives earlier in the day. The ankles that used to look normal start showing the faint impression of a sock long after the sock has been removed. And beneath that, oxygen delivery to the muscles decreases. The muscles themselves, deprived of circulation and deprived of the stimulus that tells them to stay strong, begin to lose mass. This process is called disuse atrophy, and it doesn't take years to begin. It begins in days. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that just 5 days of reduced lower limb activity in adults over 60 produced measurable decreases in calf muscle mass and significant reductions in peripheral blood flow. 5 days. Susan had been resting for 4 months. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. The fatigue she was feeling, the heaviness, the stiffness, the weakness, wasn't a reason to rest. It was a symptom of not moving enough. Rest was feeding the exact problem she was trying to escape. Most people never realize this, because resting feels like the responsible thing to do. It feels like self-care. It feels like listening to the body. But for legs after 60, stillness is not recovery. Stillness is the condition itself. It was her neighbor, Patricia, who said it. Not harshly, not as a criticism, just honestly, the way old friends speak to each other. "Susan, I haven't seen you outside in months. Are you okay?" Susan told her about the fatigue, about the doctor's advice, about the resting. Patricia listened, then said something Susan wasn't expecting. "My physical therapist told me something last year that I've never forgotten. She said, for legs after 60, movement is medicine. And the absence of movement is the condition it's meant to treat." Susan sat with that for a long time. Movement is medicine. And the absence of movement is the condition it's meant to treat. She called her doctor the next morning. Not to complain, to ask, "Is it possible that resting too much is making my legs worse?" There was a pause. Then, "Susan, yes, for circulation. Prolonged inactivity is one of the worst things. I should have been clearer about that. I meant rest from overexertion, not rest from all movement." 2 different things that nobody had distinguished for her until now. Susan didn't join a gym. She didn't start running. She didn't do anything that looked like exercise to anyone watching. She just started moving again, in small, deliberate, consistent ways. The first thing was the simplest. Every time she sat down, at breakfast, watching television, reading, she started moving her ankles, slow circles, 10 in each direction, every 30 minutes. It sounds almost too small to matter. She almost talked herself out of it for exactly that reason. But here is what those ankle circles were doing inside her legs while she sat in her armchair. Each rotation activated the calf muscle pump. Each pump pushed blood back up from her lower legs. Each cycle of circulation delivered more oxygen to tissue that had been slowly starving for it. The vessels that had gone quiet were being asked to work again. 30 seconds. Every 30 minutes. That was the beginning. The second thing Susan added was standing up. Not walking, just standing. Every hour, she stood up from whatever she was sitting on, fully upright. Both legs straight, for 30 seconds. Then sat back down. That simple act, the muscular contraction of rising from a chair, activated her quadriceps, her glutes, her calves simultaneously. And each activation sent a signal to those muscles. You are still needed. You are still being used. Stay strong. Because muscles don't stay strong out of loyalty. They stay strong because they are asked to. And Susan had stopped asking. The third thing came 2 weeks later. She started walking to the end of her street and back. Not far, not fast. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes after lunch. That was it. No program, no schedule, no pressure. Just the end of the street and back. The same street she had walked past 1,000 times without thinking. Now it felt like the most important street in the world. Here is what those 3 things did, together, consistently, over 8 weeks. A 2019 review in Circulation found that low-intensity lower limb movement performed consistently throughout the day, even in short intervals, produced significantly greater improvements in peripheral blood flow than a single longer exercise session. Consistent, small movement. More powerful than one big effort. Every single time. By week 4, the morning stiffness was gone by the time Susan finished her first cup of coffee. By week 6, she was back in the garden. 30 minutes, kneeling and standing, without holding anything. By week 8, Patricia looked out her window one morning and saw Susan walking past, not to the end of the street, but around the entire block. Patricia opened her window and called out, "There she is." Susan laughed and kept walking. 3 movements, starting right now. First, ankle circles. If you're sitting, start now. 10 slow circles clockwise, 10 counterclockwise, both feet, every 30 minutes. This is your calf pump working. This is circulation moving. Second, sit to stand. Once every hour, stand up fully. 30 seconds. Then sit back down. No equipment. No space needed. Just the signal your muscles need to know they're still in use. Third, the short walk. Not a workout. Not a distance goal. Just outside and back. 5 minutes in the morning. 5 minutes after a meal. That's enough to change what happens inside your leg vessels for the next several hours. 3 movements. None of them look like exercise. All of them work like medicine. Susan told me something I want you to carry with you. She said, "I thought I was being kind to my legs by letting them rest, but I was actually just teaching them to need less and less from me until they did." Read that again. Teaching them to need less and less until they did. That is what prolonged inactivity does. Not dramatically, not suddenly, quietly, gradually. One day of rest becoming a habit. One habit becoming a smaller life. It wasn't age that made Susan weaker. It was what she stopped doing. And the moment she understood that, everything became simpler. Not easier at first, but simpler. Because the direction was clear. Move. Consistently. Every day. Not much. Not hard. Just enough to remind your body that you still need it to show up for you. Because it will. If you ask it to. Your legs have carried you your entire life. Through work. Through family. Through everything. They are not giving up on you. They are waiting for you to stop giving up on them. If Susan's story felt familiar, the rest that didn't help, the weakness that crept in quietly, the life that got a little smaller without any single dramatic moment, don't scroll away. Leave a comment. 2 or 3 words. Tell me what you've stopped doing that you want to start again, because someone will read that today and feel less alone. And that might be exactly what they needed to take the first step. This video is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Hit the like button if Susan's story reached you. Subscribe to Strong Legs, Independent Life every Tuesday and Saturday at 11 a.m. Because it wasn't age. It was never just age. Keep smiling, keep moving, and never forget, you've got this.